Hi there. For quite a long time I'd been thinking about buying a second antenna, active antenna for use at home. Obviously I've had the Wellbrook now for 14 months. It's been fantastic. Taking it out on quite a few de-expeditions as well. And obviously it's the only antenna really that I use at home for serious DXing. So I started looking at this and eventually bought it, the Boni-Whip, and you might remember I mentioned it in my update video a couple of weeks ago. And I bought this antenna because, one, it's less than half the price of another Wellbrook. Obviously a second Wellbrook would be great, but that's a bit too much really. I think the one I bought was £250 or more. So it's less than half the price. It tunes through to 300 megahertz. And what's interesting is that for as many supporters of this antenna, there seem to be as many detractors. Some people write that it's completely useless indoors. It's a broadband antenna. That sort of makes sense. It's going to amplify everything, including all the noise in the house. But I've also read that it's actually, for its very sort of compact size, it's actually very sensitive and performs very well in quieter environments. And for the money I thought, well, I needed a second antenna, something potentially to sort of plug into my portables at home or whatever, but also something that's sort of small and compact that I can take out with me. So I thought, well, might as well do it. So I went ahead and bought it. And I haven't actually used it yet, but it is pretty compact. This is the actual antenna. That's the radiating element, the whip. That actually unscrews, so you can actually use various types of elements on it. I'm wondering actually what would happen if you attached a very long piece of wire to it. And then the power is supplied to it via this little box. It sort of looks, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say homebrew, but it doesn't quite look as if it's the same level of sort of professionalism as the Wellbrook. But, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the performance. So it's powered from 12 volt supply. Well, I think 12 to 15 volts actually. And I don't have a power supply for it yet. Interestingly, the linear power supply that was supplied with my Wellbrook gave up the ghost about a week ago also. So I actually bought a replacement from Maplin. I think it was a switch mode power supply and right voltage, etc. But it was so noisy, the noise floor on the ELAD increased by about 20 decibels. It was horrendous. So I took it back, phoned up Andrew at Wellbrook, and he very kindly sold me a replacement. So in the meantime, I'm running the Wellbrook on the battery pack that I built quite a long time ago. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the Boni-Whip on the original battery pack that I threw together for the ELAD. That has now been replaced by a rechargeable 12 volt lead acid battery from Maplin. So that's the battery I'm going to use with the ELAD on the expeditions, which meant this was free. I put some fairly new batteries in it, and it's putting out nearly 15 volts, so perfect. So basically I'm going to run the Boni-Whip off that power supply. I'm going to run the Wellbrook off this power supply. I've put the Wellbrook in the garden, which I don't do because the garden tends to be as noisy, sometimes noisier than in the house. But I thought I'd give it a try, and I'm going to put the Boni-Whip outside also. And then I'm going to connect them one at a time to the ELAD. I'm going to find some signals and do a direct comparison, antenna to antenna. And I can remember reading the article from the guy who's got a Wellbrook and said that his Boni-Whip was performing as well as his Wellbrook, and he took a lot of stick for it. Basically, people called him a liar and said, "I don't believe you, doesn't make sense, etc., etc." I prefer to stay open-minded. So, you know, let's look at a number of signals on medium wave through to shortwave, using both antennas, I'll record the results, and we'll see how they compare. Yeah, but I think it'd be really interesting. I'm going to start doing that tonight. I was actually going to go out to the exposition. I had my Sony packed up, ready to go, and the Texan PL3T 310 ET, and the well, you can't really see it, but the Eaton E1 has its own case. I'm trying to look after it, but to be honest with you, the weather's rubbish, and you know, to be out in the middle of the night in the middle of a field next to the wood, uncoiling sort of 100 metres of wire, didn't seem like a very good idea in the end. So here's something that I can do at home. So that's basically the setup. So basically the Boni-Whip and the Wellbrook, both running on separate power supplies. I'm putting them in, they're both in the garden, or at least the Wellbrook's now in the garden. The Boni-Whip will be in there shortly. I'm going to set the Boni-Whip up on my sort of camera tripod, so it'll actually be slightly, the radiating element will be slightly higher above the ground than the top of the Wellbrook loop, but it'll be fairly close. So it'll be interesting to see how they perform relatively. So some reception videos to come using the Boni-Whip, and let's see if the chap whose article I read recently, you know, if I can replicate that, if I can receive signals as well with this little device as I can with the Wellbrook. We shall see. Anyway, as I said, reception videos to come. Thanks for watching.